Bye.
Hey, Dude Bannon. Hey, Jody Raynsford. How you doing?
I'm all right, David Hellard. How are you?
Good. Big news week. Sad news week. Unsurprising news week.
People will do anything to get out of paying runners, won't they?
Yeah,
Literally
absolutely.
anything.
Really sad. So, Dude, as you've probably seen, maybe heard, Brighton Marathon has gone into administration, which is, not a huge surprise given the financials. And I think as soon as people don't start paying, it's almost only a matter of time.
And the other aspect as well is that Brighton Council were saying there's no way they're going to award the license until debts are paid off. So there must have been money owed to the council. There must have been money owed to or a whole bunch of things that we don't know about.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's incredibly sad, and I don't know if that's necessarily the right approach either, because really, COVID has screwed them royally.
Yeah,
it sounded like they weren't in a great financial position before anyway. But if in theory an organization could juggle their debts a bit and continue and run a successful event that would allow them to reduce the deficit, and we could still have this great event, and over the next 10-15 years it makes its money back, that's surely preferential to it goes into administration, no one gets paid. Because I can't see the winners getting money out of it. I can't.
This is administration for it, isn't it? Administration is normally the situation, isn't it? Where, I mean, in a lot of cases, they go to administration in order to avoid paying like a shitload of debt, don't they? Because they normally, they'll go to administration. So
I think it stops all legal actions against them, financial legal actions.
And this, I'm by no means an expert, as we constantly say on this. So don't fucking I can't remember what your name was on YouTube. Go, listening to you is like listening to some idiots.
Take him down.
We know we are. All right. But I thought it was really interesting the timing of Brighton Council saying, if debts aren't paid, we're not given the license. And then it went into administration. And so I wonder whether, because with a lot of administrations, like Maid have just gone into administration and almost come straight back out of it again, haven't they? Next has bought them, but they've gone into administration, I think got rid of 500 people, probably negotiated certain debts down to pay off certain amounts and everything, and come back out of administration. That's what happens in a lot of administrations, isn't it? The thing, sometimes the thing can carry on, sometimes the thing gets split up or whatever. And then whoever's owed debt gets screwed, basically.
Green comes in, steals all your pension pot.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But in a lot of cases, employees get screwed, get made redundant and stuff. People that owe money get screwed. There's lots of people get screwed, but they normally take it back out of administration. I wonder whether Brighton Council, knowing that is what is going to happen, are saying you can pay off who you want, but if we don't get paid, regardless of whether you come out of administration or not, we will not give you the license for it. So do whatever you want to do in administration, but that company cannot come back out and run this event. So it's their kind of way of, they might not, I don't know. Again, not entirely sure about how like the whole secured creditor thing works when you're in administration, but you kind of set your stall out there by going, there's only one way that this race is ever going ahead again, and that's making sure that we don't get screwed over by debt, which, as a resident of Brighton and Hove, that's exactly what you'd want them to do. But I don't know what the legal position would be on it.
Yeah, and actually it comes down to whoever they appoint as the administrator to decide almost the order in which debt is paid.
There's always one person that makes a lot of money out of it, and I think, bad boy administrator, bad boy insolvency, bad boy administrators. I think that is
send around the bad boys.
I think if ever there's a business to set up in a recession, that's the one.
I think I could be more effective in my annoyance of someone than the fear of a heavyset bailiff would be.
Yes, I think that's true. You go, yeah. Oh, have you ever watched what's it called? Don't Pay, We'll Take It Away. We're like, yeah, that is if a couple of people come around and bang on your door, that is preferential.
Mm.
So what we will do, we'll set up outside and we will blast 420 episodes of Bad Boy Running at you, and you will be like, I have found the cash. I have found the cash. No more 12 days of fucking Christmas.
But there's like a couple of things that, so UKA have said that they don't have a license yet, and say this is a savable situation, which I hope it is. That's quite critical, because I was thinking about running Brighton this year, not realizing London's back on, and there's a hope that maybe I'm a pacer for London. But I mean, yeah, that's another episode. But hopefully there is. But if not, we were looking at potentially doing Madrid Marathon, because
we say London's back on. You mean London's back on for you as a pacer? Like London hasn't been cancelled.
London's back on in April, which to me,
oh, is it? It's moving back to April.
Yeah, which is great news.
When was that announced?
I don't know if it was.
We were literally talking about that. I'm like sure, like 2 episodes ago, by how shit it was that it's in, you know, where it moved.
And maybe it's because we just haven't applied, and so they've not announced it. They've not had to announce it because anyone applying knows the dates, and we haven't done that. So yeah, it's back 23rd of April, which I think is great, because who wants to be having to negotiate wedding season, stag season, going out on your long runs? You have much younger friends than I do, or whatever it may be. But summer holidays, you know,
yeah, exactly,
kids at home, everything. Like let's save the drudgery of marathon training for the shittest time of the year, please. But if they didn't have UKA license, that means the race wouldn't be, the times wouldn't be valid for Good for Age or championship places for London marathons or other of the big events. And actually that would, for a lot of people, myself included, make a difference, because Good for Age is massive motivator for people to carry on, to do a race, to get a time, because it's the only way you can guarantee your London Marathon place or championship. So that in itself, and Brighton sells itself as a fast course, so that's the one for you to get your Good for Age on. So that's the thing. I wonder whether if you're allowed to get your money back, if you signed up for this race as your focus, and then you're like, well, I can't. It doesn't allow me to do the thing I've signed up for. But the fear, I guess, if a company goes into administration, you have to think there's going to be some support companies that are the bedrock of the infrastructure of races. Whoever puts out the metal gates, all these types of companies, that there might be some smaller companies in there who themselves will be screwed if they don't get this money out of Brighton. And that's the real worry with them, is the domino effect that suddenly
it's not going to be the course measurer or the water suppliers for Brighton.
That's true. That's true. And actually, I want to be administrator to say, no, they should not be paid ever until they need 5 years in a row before we next pay them. So super sad news. I don't know what it means for Brighton Marathon currently, because is this just a facade of financial jiggery, or is this the end? And there's been nothing to suggest we know either way.
No, do badders. Have you signed up for Brighton? I know that there was a couple of people in the group who mentioned that they signed up for Brighton, like literally last week. I think Sarah said she signed up for Brighton last week. Have you signed up? What notifications have you got? Let us know. It'd be interested to see what the communication's been. I bet you it is poor.
And do we think there'll be another Brighton Marathon by a new firm, a different firm? It's
got to be a big one, though, isn't it? I think, this is the thing about the, consolidating, that there's you've got to be a
credible firm.
You've got to be a big organization that can handle stuff, because, to be able to weather the storm of all this kind of stuff. What else did Grounded Events put on? What other events did they have?
They had one of the big 10Ks, BM 10K, Brighton Marathon, but they also took on some Ranga relays.
And that was a license thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we
talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah. So that was cancelled, and but it sounds as if they basically most of their money has gone down the toilet on Brighton, and then they had people claiming back money for the Ranga relays. They went to small claims courts and things where 2 county judges said that they were required to pay money. Like one for 500, one for 2,400.
Oh, wow.
So that's the thing. It's not massive amounts from the courts so far. Although I think the Alex Ramsey still owed $2,000, the winner of this year's race. But it's not, they're not going to collapse. There's not loads of events collapsing. But Brighton is quite like an important race in the calendar for me, because you're really looking at what do people do if they can't get into London, and there aren't that many big city marathons in the UK, really. Like what are the big ones? Manchester and Brighton, to me, were the 2 biggies.
Yeah.
And then there are obviously plethora of others, but not of that scale. And I do think people want that big city experience, because London draws them in on the TV. They see that and they want that, and so it's a huge loss to have lost the 3rd biggest marathon in the UK. I'm going to guess.
Exactly. I mean, and everything that comes with the local economy, with hotels and infrastructure. I mean, I'm sure there'll be people in Brighton who are incredibly parochial about it and would be delighted that it doesn't bring in lots of people. But it's undoubtedly before Brighton Marathon, there weren't that many kind of like big events that Brighton had. It would have like Pride. The kind of stuff that would draw it would have Pride, it would have London to Brighton, which is still, it's still quite a localish thing, kind of a southeast type thing as well, because you've got and then Brighton Marathon came along, and so you're like, we've got some nice, a nice collection of big events there, which every city needs, and you're losing one of the biggest there. The effect's going to be huge, but the council clearly are seriously angered by this, for them to come out, or protecting themselves as well. So, but it's whether someone's going to step in, knowing the risks, knowing whether because something like Pride is one of those things where if Pride collapsed, and it was on the edge the whole time, for many years before they started like ticketing it and stuff like that, it was always needing to be rescued, and it was always kind of like part rescued, I think, by the council, part rescued by local business, stuff like that, because it was so important. I just wonder if something similar might happen with the Brighton Marathon losing it, where they're going to try and get maybe some sort of a partnership. But if Grounded don't do it, is there someone that can step in? And
say London Marathon events stepped in. I mean, they don't even have to market, do they? It's just you haven't got in. You haven't got in. Say you've got a default place.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. You've got the economy of scale with the with the back office, and also the majority of people that apply for London. If you can get to London, you can get to Brighton, and so it's not as if you've got somewhere that's literally within 50 miles of the original race. So it would make sense. Wasn't Brighton Southport though? Wasn't there like a rivalry? Wasn't there between? There's like a personal kind of vendetta rivalry thing going on though, wasn't there, with Brighton and London? I'm absolutely sure.
I'm not sure of that, but I love the idea.
I'm sure there was. I'm sure that there is like bad blood that the whole Brighton Marathon thing was set up on that basis.
Do you think they've gone into administration rather than selling to London because they're like, I'm never going to sell to you?
Spite administration. Yeah, we could have survived, but we're going down. Everything's going down. I will destroy my baby before letting you adopt it.
Yeah. Well, if anyone knows any juice behind the origins of Brighton, or if anyone else got some strong opinions, let us know. Or if anyone's on the inside, if you're
on the inside, anonymous tip-off.
We've got to have some accountants, some auditors who are involved in the administration process. Surely, and email us anonymously. letters@badboyrunning.com.
I saw a I was thinking the worst thing that could happen if Iron Man bought it. I just kept thinking that the worst thing that could happen is if Iron Man becomes it won't become a UTMB thing, but that's the kind of thing that would bloody happen, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I started seeing more and more notices from races, particularly in the US, where they are.
How many US races you signed up for?
No, not ones I've signed up for. Facebook's gone weird at the moment. It's showing all sorts of weird stuff. Actually, the fact it's showing some running stuff, at least tends slightly towards some of the interests. I don't know.
You know why? This is your job to know why, isn't it?
But what, the targeting's screwed. Like the Facebook have done this expanded targeting thing, and so I think everyone's choosing this up. I'm getting served with like these ads for becoming an electrician in like Aberdeen and businesses in Manchester and stuff like that. It's a setting that they've not they've obviously not taken into account.
Actually, I think that's quite interesting for because Apple have got, it's basically because of Apple. Apple have crashed all advertising, all marketing, because now I'd be interested to know whether people are happy about this or not, because actually I like to be served with content. Like I don't want my news filtered, but in terms of things to buy, I do want to be served with things that I want.
Yeah, relevant. Yeah.
And I think it benefits me more so than news. I think there is a danger of just being caught in your own bubble. But because iOS now don't share any data with Facebook, or massively limited it, and I assume the same will be for Instagram and for TikTok, it means that Facebook can no longer target a user from, say, for example, a Bad Boy Running group, or who's followed the page London Marathon. All of these interests you'd normally use to try and target, maybe not the groups, but or who's a runner. So instead, now Facebook, in their self-interest, are suggesting that you advertise to groups of kind of 2 million people, which is insane.
And then that's it. It's and then they're supposed to show their interest by clicking on it or reading it or something. It's audience expansion. That's what it is. It's audience expansion, and so it's
which means
basically makes the audience massive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For audiences that were like 1 million is now for like 4.5 million. So I just think of a look at some of the things that I've been served with. Looking to renovate your garden this winter. World of cross stitch in Lakeside. Auto recycling.
Just on Facebook? Are you just going
on Facebook? Just on Facebook. I mean, like, some of the stuff is utterly insane. I'm
going to have a quick flick through as we're speaking. Yeah, and so that's the front. So it's weird that actually it's kind of a good thing in some ways, but not really, because
but it doesn't make a good experience. I mean, the thing is, sometimes I people go, oh, retargeting, it's really sinister, following you around. But sometimes I forget to do shit. And if it reminds me that I need to do my insurance or I need to do something else, I'm like, fuck it, I am really glad that you are reminding me of those things, or remind me to do something that I knew that I wanted and showed an interest in. There are other times where it's I don't know, on LinkedIn, for example, I keep seeing the same ads, and no matter how many times I say, I don't want to see this person's fucking face anymore, and I'll write, I don't want to see his fucking face, his stupid face looking at me with his stupid eyes, and it just keeps serving the same thing again and again, and it's utterly frustrating. But yeah, I think, did you, I mean, that wasn't the point I was making. The point I was going to make was something else, but actually it leads me on to Elon Musk and Twitter. Have you been? I've not really been on Twitter much, and so I've only really started getting back into using Twitter again. And it seems like the perfect time to do it as Musk takes over, because his commitment to troll, when he's got so much other stuff to do, his commitment to trolling is fucking incredible. He is just the time he will wait, the lengths he will go to fight, people that big figures who are sacking him off, to then put $8 please underneath their underneath their tweet. It's just something else. It is so good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that. I don't really use socials that much as most people realize, especially not Twitter. But yeah, I think it's probably the death knell of Twitter, him taking over, surely.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's the thing is, it's all that thing. It's like when people go, oh, if so and so gets in, I'm gonna move to Canada. Like in America, they go, if Trump gets in, I'm gonna move to Canada. Not many people move to Canada.
Yeah, but are you going to pay what, £8 a month
to have a blue tick?
Yeah, to have a blue tick.
But I don't know if it's important to someone to have a blue tick. Then yeah, have a blue tick. Like, but you don't have to have a blue tick. It was insane. Do you know? Like when you see how many people are employed by Twitter, I mean, like the layoffs, really, it's obviously sad that people are losing jobs are, but the amount of people like at Twitter, you're like, fucking hell. And even like Jack Dorsey, the co-founder, was like, apologetic, because he was kind of for the Elon Musk takeover.
Yeah.
But he was like apologetic, going like, we just grew too quickly. I just hired far too many people, tried to grow too quickly, and the result. This is the result of it, is the fact that because they were like losing $4 million a day or something like that, which is just insane. It's and you kind of expect it. You kind of expect it with what did someone work out about? 1% of Twitter users have blue ticks, and so if they all purchase, I mean, I can't work this out. If they all purchase, like the income is insane. But the point I was making around there, it was that one thing that Elon Musk said, because he was talking to advertisers, loads of which have kind of saying they're not going to advertise and all kind of because they think it's just going to become right wing fest. But he was saying bad ads, ads that aren't relevant are bad, but ads that are relevant, can be good content. And it's the kind of content that's useful to you. And I thought that's actually, that's a really good way of looking at it, and it's a really good way of thinking about it. And that's the thing, if it's done well, you like the fact it's been served. Like if you're interested in running and you've been searching like London Marathon and you're being served with alternatives, you'll be like, fuck yeah, this is great. Like I'm being served with things that make you're like this is good. This is serving my needs perfectly, or showing up things which other marathon runners that's when it works really well. But yeah, I'm interested what other people think. I don't know if many people agree with us. If they
and maybe it's because we're marketeers and we almost enjoy observing other people's work.
Yeah, exactly. I love the relevancy on this. I love the relevancy. I love the recency, and I love and how appropriate it is. And the offer's great too. Yeah, and that's it. And when we see it working, I think we enjoy it. The point I was making originally about Facebook and the fact that I've been seeing a lot of races, particularly in the US, is like the kind of a backlash against UTMB. So people saying that when you're doing their races, that they're not offering UTMB points anymore because of the Ironman Association with it.
So some of the races that were UTMB points previously have now been cut.
Offering UTMB points are saying that we're not offering UTMB points because amazingly, I will try and find this now on Facebook, and it will be impossible for me to find
I wonder whether MDS still has UTMB points or those types of races or not, because I mean that was part of the appeal. Like if I think of friends like G Law, Misha, a lot of conversations I've had have been, well, I've got my UTMB points, I want to use them.
Exactly.
And especially if you do something like an MDS, or let's say an Ultra X, and they get points, and you've spent 9 months training for something. You're then looking like, I just need to do one more 100-miler and I could do UTMB. And I'm never going to be in this position again because I'm never going to run a 5-day ultra that costs me, a huge amount of training time and again in my life. So now I will do UTMB. Whereas without that, if you're only applying to UTMB races because you want to do UTMB, that's an enclosed loop.
Yeah.
And whether that could actually bite them in the arse, potentially, because they just want a piece of every pie now, don't they? That's the issue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much that affects. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know how many like Americans, for example, because this seems to be seen in Americans. But how much that's going to affect them. They're going to care whether they can do UTMB or not, or whether it's a race that they ever
Probably not. But
So
then
this is the
Western
one.
States is now.
I found amazingly. I found it. This is the one. So this is from High Lonesome 100, which is a Colorado 100-mile race,
Mm.
and this is what it says. Actually, let me just find the official thing. It talks about qualification requirements and stuff like that. Why no UTMB races? Due to UTMB's partnership with Ironman, we no longer feel their company or races reflect the values of this sport. Additionally, they consistently fail to take action on key needs in the sport, namely around gender equity, pregnancy deferrals, and transgender non-binary entries. For a race with millions of dollars and platform at the top of our sport, they continue to demonstrate that their priorities are out of touch with the sport. As such, we will not recognise any UTMB finishes as qualifiers and encourage runners to seek out races that prioritise the community sport and environment instead of those whose sole objective is maximising revenue, which I think, that's pretty accurate, really, is it?
Yeah. Although, actually, I mean, gender equality now, they have stepped up their game. But
eventually,
they dragged their feet to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're not exactly, at the forefront or anything.
Yeah. And maybe we'll see almost this coalition of non-UTMB races that. I think the point
an anti-Ironman coalition. I love an anti-coalition.
Yeah,
that's the new thing.
I don't know enough about Ironman films to say something witty about who that might be. I wish I did, but I think my sense in terms of the US will be that the more mainstream runner who's drawn to the glossy stories will probably still care about UTMB because Western States is part of the ecosystem now.
Yes,
of
course, yes.
Whereas the kind of the ultra community will probably turn against it because, but for all the reasons we've said, and because they're attending more races and you're more likely to know the organizer of all the other ultras than you are someone who organizes any UTMB stuff or even Western States. You might know them as a big name, but you're probably not hanging out with them before the race. Then you're probably not saying, "Oh, how's it going?" and seeing their struggles. And like, is it Jared, the guy who, when we're in Flagstaff, who organizes a shit? I need to get him on the podcast. Organizes a shitload of ultras. Super lovely guy. Just chats to everyone. You're not going to have that connection. So who are you going to back? You're going to back the person who backs you, or you like, or you know, or you're connected with. So it could be a real backlash to the States. But then I don't know how essential North America is to the UTMB business model. I guess global domination is their intent.
Global domination. And it's one of those ones. It's one of those ones, isn't it? It worries you when, like for what we were just talking about there about consolidation, that actually individually these different races, if there's issues with and having that global reach is important. Although, with something like COVID and stuff, if a global pandemic hits, then again that may be a challenge. But at least you're kind of diversifying between countries. Even when everything else was closing down, the US was pretty much open, apart from the bits around around the edges. And so it kind of diversifies your revenue, doesn't it, as a bigger brand? And so it's a sensible thing to do. But it does, again, but on the opposite side of that, there's a worrying thing of like, and I would say this is like the Cineworld example, is that you buy, something's buying up all the key races, and then if that fails, it just fucks everything.
Yeah,
which is great for the smaller races, but it absolutely fucks everything. It's like you kind of have a monopoly on all the key big races, and all the risk that brings.
What if it goes into administration?
And if it goes into administration, then it's just like all of a sudden you've got all the big races. And like I use the Cineworld example because of course Cineworld, huge organization, bought up everything. Including like all the picture house cinemas, which should never been allowed to do, and everything. And then that goes into administration. It closes down pretty much every cinema in the UK that's not a Curzon or Everyman or an Odeon, unless Curzon's been bought by them as well. But and it's just that kind of thing, which it's great for other race organisers and the smaller race organisers, but you don't want to lose the big one. You don't want to lose still, as much as we complain about things like Western States and complain at UTMB and stuff like that, you don't want to lose them ever.
Yeah. Although I don't think we do complain about Western States, really.
No, we don't complain about Western States at all.
Yeah. Well, I've got, just while I'm conscious of time, just some updates. One quite fun.
Wait a minute, we haven't mentioned drugs. Is there a drug story?
There are,
Come on, you must go. You've got your vendetta against East Africans. You need to continue this.
I do have a drug story, but it's just more a drugs article, but it's not that interesting, and it's not that topical either. But
wait, when has that stopped us? Not interesting or topical or relevant.
True. Well, I thought we mentioned the World
Netflix recommendation then.
I do have two of those actually. That will be next week. Two very good ones actually.
Okay.
But, the first World Trail Champs happens finally after 3 years of deferment.
Oh, okay.
It seems in Thailand, which was that was interesting to watch because suddenly all the runners who I now know a lot more descending together.
What's the coverage like? Well, how do you rate it?
You got updates on Twitter basically halfway through a race if someone. There wasn't really any coverage, but I guess that's to be expected. If you go to, it's incredibly expensive to put it on for a 1 in a 2 year thing where I don't think you can raise a sponsorship to do that. But interesting. I'm trying to think of what the big stories were. For my world, big story was at Stian Angerman, who won Golden Trail last year. Won the he won the equivalent of the marathon distance, and that to me was super interesting to see because he's kind of fallen out with Golden Trail a little bit, it seems.
Over quartz?
No, just over. I think there's an element.
The presenters.
There's the presenters, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, so I don't want to overstate anything here. I think there's just an element of he maybe even the world champs. He wants to do a bit more freedom in what he can do.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say he's had a brilliant year. He's kind of done some races that he's not done as well as he did the previous year against a lesser field. So for him to come back and to win is quite surprising actually, and just really nice because he's just such a lovely person. Other big stories, I'd say. Someone who I'll try and interview, Romanian runner, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, was female, was Sky Race World Champ. She won the female one, which clearly she must be a really great runner. But the shorter distances would...
Wait a minute. Is it you don't remember a name or you're just scared of pronouncing it?
Well, I've actually saved all the emails, so I'll have a quick look at just to get the names right, because it is good to... So excuse me for a tiny pause as we bring up the names here. So, Stian came first. Francesco Pupi was second, which great result for him. John came third. In what distance was that? It's 38k. The Romanian
training run.
Yeah, exactly. Denisa Ionella Dragomir. That is a good name.
That is a great name.
That is a rocky baddie kind of name.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and reach out to Denisa and speak to her and see if she'll come on the podcast. I think the big story for me really was that in the shorter distances, it was absolutely dominated by African runners.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely dominated. I'll just see if I can find that email.
I'm not saying that these are linked. What's the drug testing system at the trail?
Do they use quartz?
Is it quartz or is it WADA?
I'm sure they have WADA. I don't actually know, but let's have a look at the short. So the short trail dominated by African.
Short trail. Define what's short trail. What distance is that?
Let's have a look. So we have. I can't find the email now. That's frustrating. Apologies. Short trail, I think, would be 10K half marathon.
Okay.
But so still you're going to be running like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know why I haven't saved that email. Apologies. Is it worth waiting while I find it, or?
No, wait, I'm looking. Here we go.
Let's see if they've got the results. Here we go for the results. Oh, must be on tender hooks at home. Desperate to know. Yeah, but I guess that the main thing, the story there is, and this is almost an ecosystem where a lot of the African runners are now running in it's called the World Cup in Switzerland.
Yeah,
because they are shorter, they're sharper, they're less technical races. So Sierra Zanao is the biggest race on that list, and it seems that they have all progressed on to the world champs now and just dominate in the same way they've dominated those races. They've dominated the world champs in the shorter distances. So whether we're going to see an extension of that in the coming years will be the thing to watch. Let's have a look. See full results. Wow, this website is slow. Whether it's just the shorter races that are going to be appealing, because we've really seen in the Golden Trail, but I think in other races, progressing past a marathon, they've really struggled, or even marathon distances for trail, because the time is so much more. A lot of the runners are just so less experienced in their nutrition and when to drink, all these fairly standard things we learn during our graduation through running, they don't. And so will next year or 2 years time, 4 years time, are we going to see them creeping up the distances or not? Can't get their website to load, so I'm going to leave it down.
I'm just looking at it here. So they say this because what it's saying on this website, I'm looking at Trail Running Spain for some reason, is that so Jonathan was in the short trail, which is 38k.
Yeah.
And then the long trail 78k.
But there's also there's an uphill,
right? And then but where are the Kenyans? Where are the East Africans dominating? Because I can't see.
Oh, this bloody internet.
Oh wait a minute! Here we go. Oh, I can see. Yeah, I can see uphill.
Was it just the uphill?
Uphill races, yeah. So we've got men's race in uphill. Patrick Kippen. Oh, how do you say that?
Kipngeno, is it?
Kipngeno. How do you say that?
Kipngeno. Yeah.
Kipngeno. Sorry.
Yeah.
Philemon Kiriago.
Yeah.
And then Alex Garcia. So that's in the men's. Yeah. So that's uphill is the thing. What is it? How far uphill? 8.5. Oh God, 8.5 kilometers uphill. Substantial
climbing.
Oh wow.
It's a chunky track, and as most people know, then when you're running uphill, it doesn't really matter how technical it is, because you don't have to pass it over such speeds. So ankle strength's useful, but it's not as risky, it's not as skillful. So it's a lot easier to just turn up with great lungs.
And it's Chiang Mai, so it's like jungle. It's heart of the jungle. Like it's it's tropical atmosphere and terrain. Wow.
Yeah. And the other story other thing that's quite fun, the have released their live tracking.
Oh, okay.
So previously, a lot of races we get live tracking. You can now go onto the website and replay their races, which is brilliant, because if you've ever done the original mountain marathon, it's pretty tricky at times to navigate. And for people that aren't good at that type of discipline, you can quite easily get lost. You can go some massive errors, or just choose a wrong route and spend hours just trying to find a marker. So they've released people always have trackers, but they've decided they're actually going to show what happened during the race for different disciplines and different distances, which is really fun because you can see how pants some people are. And if it would be great if you've done the same because you can go back and actually see what the good runners have done, like what routes they took, because quite often in a race like the you're following a pig track that isn't really a trail, but kind of exists. And you might be edging along the side of a hill, contouring rather than going over the top. So being able to actually look back and dissect really easily. But it's also quite fun to see just the differences in the A class and the lower classes.
Yeah, exactly. Like studying that stuff would be great.
Yeah, and so you can just play.
And when I say studying stuff would be great, I mean someone else studying this stuff and summarizing the analysis and then presenting it back to us will be great.
Yeah, and I'm always it's a shame that we haven't got like some of the year Ross and I did it, where we had some very alternative running strategies, shall we say, or the year that Miller and Pete got lost on the side of a mountain for 8 hours.
Yeah, I was trying to think, who got lost on the side of a mountain? It was
got one checkpoint.
You, or was that?
Yeah, and then came home, and like it's really fun to just see it really quickly and then just be imagining what those people were going through when this was happening, and like how did they go there and then turn back and then go up here and then. So it's
David, didn't you win Iceland on?
Yeah, we won Iceland on. Yeah, that's true. But even on that, we made some aggressive cornering decisions, shall we say, that didn't always turn out right. But I think they've got it on their website, but they should really set like Benny Hill music to it whenever you're watching it. Yeah, just to get that extra level of entertainment. So
I don't understand how anyone who didn't grow up like kind of 80s and stuff knows like the Benny Hill music. It amazes me still when I see it being used by like kids and stuff. I'm like, how do you? I mean, I imagine it's just become divorced. It's just now known as a piece of music that's associated with people moving very quickly, rather than what it's originally associated, which is slightly more
chasing
more
women in bikinis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think, what shall our question of the day be then? Brighton, we'll say, Brighton Marathon, what has this impacted you, or does this make you fearful of your race? And would you run a big...
Will you set up an alternative?
Would you run a big city marathon if you didn't think your times would qualify for Good for Age, Power of 10, Run Britain rankings, all those elements?
Yeah, that's interesting, because when you say that, I think, oh god, that's got to be a tiny percentage of people that are really bothered by that. But it's we have no real idea. Just to quickly point out, as much as we love discussion, this isn't an opportunity for people to just go, oh, I'd never run a big city marathon. I never run a big city marathon. Oh, well, bloody awful running. Right, yeah, we know your views on big city marathons and everything. Yes, right. If you're not interested, don't answer the fucking question. Okay?
I'm not sure who you're visualizing.
Oh, there's always someone that crops up. Oh, good. Oh, bloody big city marathon. Oh, who'd run a big city
So they've got a northern accent. Okay, they've got a northern accent.
I do a northern accent.
They've got a northern accent. We know someone from Yorkshire. I think, who do we know from Yorkshire?
But it's always like people just use it as an opportunity to say, yes, okay, you like trail running. Yes, okay, thank you. You don't have to fucking die. Anytime anything to do with a city marathon comes up, you just get a bunch of people going, oh, I'd never run a big city marathon. Yeah. Okay, well, it's not relevant to you, is it? Why do you have to fucking tell people that? It pisses me right off. I don't like... So I'm absolutely expecting to have the highest engagement on anything with people saying...
Please do, Baz. From now on, whenever Jody's posting on LinkedIn about...
oh no!
Buy my book. Can you just start mentioning, like, does it mention big city marathons? Just this is
big city marathon. I bloody hate big city marathons. Oh, why would you? It makes me It makes me. It's like the same thing as when people who come to London and they get on the tube and they go, "Couldn't do this every day," and it does tend to be Northerners. I've got to say on this way. Oh, couldn't do this every day. You don't fucking have to, do you? So just stop going on about it. I don't know why that winds me up.
You okay, Jody?
I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I hate like it's people reveling in parochialism. That's what I fucking hate. Like, yes, okay, be like, I'll just stop talking now. I don't want to go on another tangent.
So, well, thanks for listening, guys. I was looking at some list of feedback I was going to read out, but I can't figure out how to scroll down on my. I've taken a picture of it, loaded it. I know that you can say.
Yeah, we're very advanced marketers. We can't use basic fucking technology as I don't know how to scroll down.
It's not, yeah. But thanks for listening, guys. We're going to put that in the Facebook group. And if there's any future guests you want, people we've got potentially coming up are an ultra runner who used to be on Babe Station. We've got...
Is that you? Hey, Babe Station would be one of the things that I'm sure David's worked there before. I'm sure, like, it's the kind of thing that.
Yeah, I was the fluffer somehow. But we've got hopefully speaking to Jack, who's smashed Killian's Bob Graham record. We are going to be talking to a company who are genuinely offering recycling services for trainers, just to understand how that works and how good it actually is. But if there are any other topics or individuals you want us to talk to, then get in touch. Let David at badboyrunning.com or message on Instagram.
We've got to have a big shout out. The fact is, we got the lineup pretty much sorted now for the Ultra Zone at the National Running Show on the 21st to the 22nd of January at the NEC. You can get free tickets with BBR code. That's BBR. You can try all the other ones as well, FYB, whatever. I'm not sure any of those work, but yeah, get your free tickets. And we've got a real cracking lineup for that as well. So yeah, be good to see you there. We'll also be selling some merch.
Yeah, and I don't know what we'll do at night, but I'm sure we'll do some kind of fun event at night. So, well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye 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 bye.
Fuck you, buddy.